Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Late Bloomer Actor. And this month, we are going to go straight to my guest now, Emily Joy, who is in the room. Good morning, Emily.
Morning, David. Thank you for having me.
It's good morning for us, obviously, but coming from around the world, wherever you're listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good weekend, or whatever it is. Thank you very much for joining. Firstly, Emily, can I say congrats on your two recent roles in Fisk and Human Error, both shows that my wife and I love to watch and we watch together. It was great seeing you on screen in both of them, and two very different, contrasting shows to boot.
Thank you, David. I know I could not believe my luck that I'm on two shows that are so different. I thought typecasting would be a problem, but that just hasn't happened.
Typecasting, look at that, straight into the business side of acting. I love it. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really good to be able to talk to someone, especially when we're talking about improving your acting, both the business side of it or acting itself, and that person is a working actor and they've got that experience. I wouldn't use the word charlatans maybe, but there's so many people out there that teach and provide services for actors, but then you go on their IMDb and they've never been on a set. So it sort of makes it a bit more real when someone talks to you and you know that they're doing the do, so to speak.
Absolutely. I always feel like I'm the acting coach that's just like half a step ahead. Like there's a lot of great coaches who used to work back in the day, or as you say, there's some coaches who've never acted, but I feel like I'm one of the people.
It's not to say that just because they haven't acted that they're not a good teacher, but it is one of the things that I look at when I reach out for support or training. So
I'm in the trenches with you.
I love it. Now, this year, as I said, I am focusing on the business side of acting a little bit, and I reached out to you as I've been very fortunate to listen to you a couple of times now with sessions you have provided for the Equity Foundation here in Australia, where you've talked about your love of mentoring actors through your studio, aptly named Joy Studio. Can you give us a breakdown of your background as an actor in Australia and how you developed the Joy Studio concept, as well as what services you provide to actors?
Thank you. So I started Joy Studio just a few years into my career. I sort of studied acting as a teenager and then went to drama school. And then I did a couple years in my local market, which was Brisbane at the time, and got my first agent there as a local agent. And then once I'd booked some work in Queensland, I was ready for the next challenge of a bigger market. So we moved to Melbourne. And then eventually, after lots of hustling in Melbourne, got a bit more work, actually got some work back in Queensland. That always happens. And then eventually had enough credits and a referral to get my Melbourne-based agent, who I'm still with. And Joy Studio, it happened kind of accidentally. I was just setting up a home space to self-tape in. And I'd been to a few studios around town and sort of couldn't find somewhere that I really loved to work at. I sort of needed like a soft kind of warm, welcoming approach, but then I also needed like a really keen eye on the scenes. And I felt like either people were like too encouraging or were like so harsh that I've like doubted everything. And I just started offering to help friends self-tape and go, hey, I've got a setup now. I'll be your reader. And they started to get callbacks and bookings. Like the rate of that was really, really high. But I was still working in a cafe at the time, didn't ever mean for it to become my second income. And it just sort of grew organically. And about after 18 months, I quit the cafe because the one shift a week I was doing was more annoying than it was helpful. And I went all in on my side hustle of Joy Studio. And I've been very intentional at keeping it part-time because it's something that could, become my whole. I'm very aware of like, no, I'm an actor first and then the coaching comes second. But I really love it. And I do self-tapes, and then that developed into private coaching and career consultations as well.
I love it. And you sort of mentioned there the side hustle. So is that something that you also help actors out with in your mentoring and look at it? Because it's such a big thing that's coming out now, is that you need to it's not your number two plan, it's not your backup plan, but it is your side hustle, something that has some income coming in. So what's your thoughts on that for actors, finding a niche that they can have and so they can focus a bit more on their acting and not be that a typical waiter and say, oh, I'm not a waiter, I'm an actor, but I'm just doing this on the side.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. I was talking to some girlfriends when I booked Human Error, and that's a group of friends that we sort of were all early mid-20s together, and then slowly over the decade they've sort of dropped off and have found more traditional careers and family and other goals and priorities and stuff. But one of them said, I always knew Emily would book a series because she had a day job she didn't hate. And I thought, gosh, isn't that funny? So I do, as part of the career consultations, I talk to actors about how can you make money that doesn't de-energize you? How can you? And I do believe in multiple income streams. I think it's way too much pressure to think you should only earn money from acting. And so we look at all the other ways, and some of that's a mindset thing. Like, you can be a waiter or you can work in retail because it's totally flexible. It's a good hourly rate. It's work that you don't have to take home. So no matter where an actor is at with their other forms of income, we look at how to maximize that and how to make sure they're still prioritizing acting energetically as the number one thing.
And eating as well. Being able to afford to buy a meal.
Exactly.
I can't remember where I read it or I listened to it, but it was overseas somewhere, and a company set up a call center for their business, but they employed actors, and it was because actors would be good in a call center. They've got that ability to articulate and everything like that. They understood what the acting career required, and if you said, "Oh, look, I've got an audition," they would work around you. So I think that's would be a fantastic opportunity, and obviously not something that comes up often, but it's about finding these opportunities, I think, isn't it? I just want to ask one quick question straight away before I go into some of the side of what you provide in Joy Studios. But what do you think actors are lacking in Australia or internationally that may be holding their careers back? It's a broad question. Yeah. Well, yeah. From your perspective of working with actors, if someone asked you pretty much to say, well, so many actors are out of work and not booking roles, what do you think would be the biggest thing that people are lacking in a general standpoint?
I think generally the ability to persevere despite setbacks. I see it all the time of, you almost have to be a bit delusional to really make a great career, because if you look at every role you don't book or every audition you don't get, every person you don't know, every agent that doesn't have you on their books, like you'll go crazy just thinking that that's evidence of it not happening. And I see actors get discouraged far too easily instead of looking at a wider lens of what success and progress in this industry is. So I think that's a huge stumbling block in not being able to remain consistent in your efforts of what you do daily, weekly, monthly as an actor. That's separate to the feedback you're getting, that you don't that you're only like busy and networking and putting down scenes when you're feeling good, and then when things are quiet you pull back as well. Be reactive, I think, is a huge stumbling block. So I think I'm all about developing the habits and processes and systems so that you are pursuing your career no matter what is happening or coming back at you that particular month.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's about the end game or the long marathon. It's not a sprint. I hear it quite often, isn't it?
Yes, and that's such a great analogy, because it's literally so much better to walk the whole year than to sprint for January and pull over on the sidelines for the next.
Yeah.
It's that slow progress. And sometimes people email me and they're like, I want to book in with you. I want to work with you every week. And that just doesn't happen. They burn out
No.
after 2 weeks, or they lose the motivation. And I say, don't see me every week. See me once a month. See me every 6 weeks. It's much better to set up a process that you can stick to no matter how you're feeling, that you're not emotionally driven with your motivation, that there's a bit more discipline there of slow but consistent is faster than any kind of manic, overproductive season.
I like that because I attribute a lot of things that my learnings being a late bloomer actor with a full-time career. So people in my position who have taken up acting, we do everything monthly. So monthly classes, a monthly this, a monthly that, because A, you can't afford to do anything weekly and you don't have the time. So that's a really good concept in that maybe that's not a late bloomer thing. Maybe that's how you need to address it. You don't need to be all in. Now, my son's doing he's at Flinders Drama at the moment. So he's in his second year, which that is all in, but you are a student. That's like anything.
Yeah.
So they are doing it every day. That's part of the degree. But then obviously when they come out, they'll change and have to look at the business side. So mentioned there what makes a bookable actor, and we started touching on it. So you've coached actors who have landed those major roles in Australian and international production. So from a business standpoint, what separates actors who consistently book work from those who struggle?
It's that consistency and sustainability in their practice generally. And then with the auditions themselves, I find more and more great tapes are when an actor has gifted themselves time to really work on it, which is such a conundrum. And it's a bit of a contradiction because we're only getting, 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours to turn around a tape. And so sometimes the thinking of like, there's not much time can come up. And I remember when I got my human error audition, I had 3 days to submit it. And I cleared my schedule.
Nice.
I cancelled appointments. I rebooked things. I missed out on work. And I remember telling someone this and they got quite upset of like, well, I could never do that. I have this other thing and this other thing, well, things that they perceived that they couldn't reschedule. But for me, it made all the difference because I knew the function of my character, Detective Maya Kersner, is exposition. Like all she does is feed Holly information that she has researched and intel about the case. And I just had this feeling that the actor who books this role would be the one who seemed the most comfortable delivering a lot of exposition. And I knew it was 3 scenes that I could not be reaching for lines in. I knew that would just mess up the rhythms and take me out of, because it's fast, skilled service workers have so much going on that they're able to talk really rapidly but still be so clear about the information they're delivering. And I really did need the 3 days to get my brain around what my character was talking about. And some of that in the 3 days was obviously sleeping, obviously, hanging out with my husband, going for walks, forgetting about it. But it was a lot of script work and a lot of analysis to make sure I felt entirely comfortable in the scene. And I think sometimes when we're showing up to auditions not entirely prepared and with a bit of a wing it attitude, or if a bit of a like, oh, well, it's a first tape. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm not, I'm not. There's a degree of that, but are you being honest with yourself in the amount of input you're putting and the time and the energy and the space that you're investing into working those scenes up off the page and finding joy in that process as well?
I love it. And then there's the joy of your name. Is there some self-sabotage that actors may not subconsciously do because of that, of just being scared about the self-tape? Do you find I hear so many actors who do not put in the work for it and they just go in and deliver it and then and obviously don't get the roles, and then that continually happens. So would that be a self-sabotage type thing that people are doing because they just don't believe in themselves or they're too scared to push forward?
Yeah, I think it's so hard because factually you won't get most of the auditions you go for. Like my A-list actors, they're booking like 1 in 10. Like 1 in 10 is an excellent booking ratio.
Yes.
That's like hugely high. That's sort of what, the cream of the crop in LA are doing. 1 in 10. So 9 times you're putting in, hypothetically, all this work, all this energy, all this resource to send off a tape that you don't hear anything back from. And
that's the hardest part for us,
exactly,
isn't it?
exactly. And if you let that get to you, or if you let that deter you, go, well, last time I had an audition, I took, 2 days off and I didn't book it, and now I'm behind on this financial thing, or now I'm out of my friendship group, or so no, next time I get an audition, I'll just do the half an hour before. Like, that's when the self-sabotage can come in, because they're sort of letting the experiences of not booking affect how they then prepare for the next opportunity. Whereas we have to take every opportunity as, like, it's not a numbers game. It's not, if I could just audition more, then I'm bound to book something. It's like, no, you'll book the auditions that you're right for and that you expertly deliver on. And sometimes it's also knowing, again, what I said about like the wider view of success is making a tape that you're proud of should be enough to motivate you and energize you to keep going, or making a tape that your agent sees a different side to your skill set, or making a tape that casting love. And they might not tell you, but they've made a note of you, or they've written your name down, or they've favorited your showcast profile, knowing that you've sent off a tape. And even if you don't book the role, that producer or that producer's assistant has seen your work, and you now have a connection point there. So it's very much detaching from the outcome and going, no, auditioning is the work. How can I keep putting up scenes that I am proud of despite the very end result?
Exactly. And it's so hard when you don't get that feedback. I think I mentioned it on a previous episode, but I did an audition last year for an Australian show, which I didn't get the role, which, this happens. But I was very fortunate to see some email traffic between my agent and the casting director, because they asked me to come on and do a voiceover for the same show later on. And in that questioning, we say, look, is David available to do this? We really liked what his work was for his submission. So that was great to hear that feedback, because you don't normally get it. So it didn't mean I obviously didn't submit a bad tape, and I just wasn't right for the role, which is what we talked about. So it's great to get that feedback. So we've segued fantastically into my next question, which is the art of self-taping. So they're now pretty much a standard part of the industry. So what are some of the key business-minded strategies actors should adopt to ensure their tapes stand out and get noticed?
I think from a business point of view, it's about understanding the function of your character. Sometimes I see actors prep every tape as if they're a leading role, and that's just not what the story requires of you. So it's not even necessarily you have to know who the director is or who the producers are, who the writer is. That info is helpful. But I think it's so important to understand, why is my character there? How do they help or hinder our lead? If they are the lead, what is their main goal? And how can I bring detail and specificity to the relationship that my character has? And that will be there whether you're a supporting role, whether you're a bit part. But I find a lot of actors just go straight to like, how do I make this scene interesting? Or how do I make this tape dynamic? And sometimes a tape won't require that. Sometimes less is more. If you're just waiter number one, your table's this way, sir, you don't need to overthink that. Just tell me.
It's pretty hard to stand out.
Exactly. And so sometimes this idea of like, oh, I want to stand out. It's like, no. In Australian casting, every casting director is so intentional about who they see. It is very rare that you'll be one of like 50 or 100 actors taping for something. You're probably one of 10, one of 20, and certainly in the casting assistant work I have seen, it's a much smaller pool than you think. And so therefore you've already stood out by getting the audition where they got, thousands of submissions, and they clicked on your profile and said, confirm a self-tape request from this actor. Therefore, the proving of yourself, that's already done. That was an unseen part of the process. Now it's about bringing the scene to life in a way that honors the story.
Yes, it's and you're saying there about you've got that audition. So that on the business side of the acting, that is the successes, isn't it? Now I keep a spreadsheet where I record all my auditions, and I try to encourage actors that I talk to do this as well, because that is when you are feeling down and going, oh, I'm going to give up. That's what you need to look at and say, no, look at all these casting directors that have reached out and asked for me to submit.
Exactly. That's the data. That's absolutely right.
Now, would you call yourself an acting coach or an audition coach? How do you see those two roles being different, and how do actors use them for, say, if they've got a big audition coming up?
Yeah, there is a slightly different approach. I find when I'm audition coaching, I really am interested in what the actor is bringing in and what their instincts and ideas are, because ultimately they're going to be the one on set doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
Starting out, I would sort of overstep a bit and give a whole lot of detail, and then the actor would book the role and then kind of flail on set because they didn't, it wasn't organic from their own ideas. So when I'm audition coaching, I'm supporting the actor in what they want to do. I'm always asking what they need from me. As a reader, I'll help them emotionally kind of in the lead up to a scene. There's a bunch of different exercises and tools if they need to be in a heightened state, or if they need to be mid-conversation, we'll do some improv. So there's things like that, and we're really working to get the scene to a place where they're really proud of their performance and their work. And then general acting coaching is more about challenging my actor and assigning them scenes that are a little outside their comfort zone or are separate to their regular casting type. I'm really trying to stretch them so that their skill set is always getting worked in a way that is over preparing them for the next audition opportunity.
That's interesting. And obviously you've done auditions yourself, both in the room and self-tape. What's your favorite? What would you prefer if they gave you the opportunity?
Yeah, I love in the room. I love meeting people, and if the director's there, it's so wonderful to talk about the story or their ideas. I mean, I had an audition recently where the director's notes were so in opposition to what the big print for the script was. And I was like, wow, I was just thinking, I was like, wow, if I had taped this, I would have had no idea that this was the dynamic of the relationship that they were looking for. So it's nice getting that extra intel. But then I also love taping because there's certain things that I love that I'm comfortable doing at home. And it's a lot easier and more convenient than traveling out somewhere. But if I have the choice, I'd always choose in person.
I like that because I certainly I deliver what I think I just deliver, but I do take direction very, very well, and I like having that. Like when you're on set, that's why we have a director. So I love being in the room because they do say, "Love that, but let's try it this way," or "No, I know that the writer and the director relationship, they've got something a little bit different, and they want a bit darker," or something like that. Things that you don't see, like you mentioned. So it's just, I guess that's the way things are changing. But at the end of the day, a callback is where that's going to happen, isn't it? Whether it's on Zoom or in the room.
Yes.
So one of the other things, and you've already talked about it as well, is getting an agent. So I wanted to ask you about getting an agent versus managing yourself. So last month I spoke with Brian Pataka, who primarily focuses on getting an agent around the world, but you've helped actors sign with their dream agents as well. What do you think actors misunderstand about the agent-client relationship, and what should they be doing on their own to move their career forward, regardless of whether they've got an agent now or seeking one?
I think they misunderstand that the agent's commission is the percentage of work. Like that they're doing 10% of the work and 90% of it is up to you, or 20%, some do 20% for commercials and stuff. So I think a lot of people view an agent as like a saving grace. or like, oh, if I could just have a great agent, then they would get me opportunities and open doors for me. They can't even open doors. I think they can like present doors, but there still has to be someone then that opens the door, and you still then have to walk through the door. So I think
Definitely.
a bit of a misconception is that an agent will make your career. There are lots of great actors with fabulous agents who don't work a lot, and there are a lot of great actors with no agent or really niche or small or boutique or just starting out agents who are working. I think we can never give all our power over to another person who ultimately, even a great agent, is managing 30 other people. So even just statistically seeing it that way, oh, I really am responsible for the quality of my career and the things that I'm doing to support that work that my agent does for me.
I hear that a lot. I try to do the same. I think I saw a video recently. I think you did it last year about you've got to be on Star now. Is that is that the side of what you're saying is to find your own work, and especially if you're a freelancer, finding those opportunities and both in your local area and interstate, regardless of whether you're in Australia or the States or the UK.
Absolutely. I think platforms like Star Now, the bulletin version of casting networks, Facebook groups, Instagram pages, there's that you need to be on top of yourself. And then there's also your own relationship development within the industry. That is your responsibility to build. An agent, they might even introduce you to people, but they can never make you be friends with someone. That is up to you. And that's a huge part of how our industry works, through relationships. And so a lot of actors are missing that in their business toolkit of, do I have the systems in place to meet and nurture and reconnect with writers, directors, casting directors, producers, other actors? Your network is everything.
And so many people roll their eyes or balk at the idea of networking. So it's I come from a public service background, so I have an opinion about networking because it's still, to me, has always been a boys' club sort of thing, and networking has been treated about knowing the right person so you can get the job that you don't deserve. It's the way I've always looked at it, which is why I treat the word networking in that way. But that's in a creative world that we live in. That's what network is about. It's about that collaboration, isn't it?
It's about understanding that filmmaking or theatre producing for the creatives is so risky. They are having so many elements against them: funding, locations, permits, weather. Everything is making their job difficult. So no one wants to add personnel to that list. No one wants a human being or a fellow worker to be one of the things making the job harder. So everyone, if the choice is there and if they are right and suitable for the role, everyone would prefer working with their friends, because the job itself on a holistic level is so difficult with so many elements outside their control. So it's not about that person, oh, they just got the role because they're friends with that person. No, there's familiarity there. There's there's collaboration there. There's a history of knowing that this person is trustworthy and reliable. And I think that's what people miss or kind of roll their eyes at when they see the same director working with the same actor again and again. It's like, no, this system works, and it means that once you're in, you will continue to work with certain groups of people, and that's a really beautiful thing. And it's something within our control, right? That's why I always lean into it, because I don't know what's getting greenlit by Screen Australia right now that I'll have an audition for in 3 months' time. I don't know what projects are going to be happening at the end of the year, but I do know who I am aware of, who I reach out to, who I invite to something, who I take to a screening of something, who I email a congratulations note to, who I follow on Instagram or Facebook. Those are all things that we can be working on that have nothing to do with our agent or even what auditions are coming through that lead to more opportunities.
And you said there before that you only got that person only got the job because they're friends with the casting director. Well, I consider Greg Apps a friend
Yeah,
now and a mentor, and Louise and Angela Heesum here in South Australia. Well, they're all casting directors. But when I first reached out to them and when I first met them, we weren't friends.
exactly.
They were casting directors, and I was an actor, and I've gone on a course with them or whatever. And over time, that relationship has developed into what I can now call a friendship. So I don't think it changes anything because they still have a job to do and they still have to put the best person forward. So you're not getting the jobs because I know them better than the other person, so to speak. So it is that networking, isn't it, that becomes a friendship. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everyone's networking, whether you're intentional or not. Like, we all know people. We all know a plumber we'd recommend or a hairdresser we wouldn't go to, or, we're always looking for what is trustworthy. What does my friend, or they've already tried that product and they recommend it. We're always looking for like ways to know that something is a sure bet. And so network, and people are like, oh, I don't network. It's like, no, but you do. Everyone is doing it all the time. It's
definitely.
be a little bit more intentional about it and look at, as you say, it's actually friendships. It's actually, how do I build and cultivate a pleasant working relationship or mutual like and respect? And as you say, over time, someone that you respect becomes someone that you trust, becomes someone that you like. And therefore, before you know it, you're wishing Greg and Robbie happy anniversary, or they're
Definitely.
writing the same thing to you. And so it's something that just happens organically when you've been intentional from the outset of, this is someone that I'm interested in beyond one particular job.
Love it. I love it. And just one quick follow-up question, going back a bit to agents. In your opinion, regardless of where you are in the world, where do you think people should reach out for their agents? Should they stick to their local area, like here in Adelaide, should you have an Adelaide a local actor, or should I reach out, or should actors reach out to the eastern states where the majority of the work is? In America, the same. It's New York or Los Angeles where majority of the agents are, but there are agents in local regions. What's your thoughts on that?
I think I would look at working in such a way that you are eventually approaching agents who you have a referral to. There is, of course, the kind of scattergun approach of, you just Google great agents in your city or even your country, and sure, why not? Send off your materials. But unless you are like the exact type of actor that they're currently looking for, that approach often is just your email getting unread, or a very kind of generic, thanks for your email, our books are full reply. So the way that I see actors have meetings with an agent, which is the ultimate goal, to feel each other out on both sides, I have seen that time and time again happen when they have been introduced by a mutual contact.
And that's interesting. And that's about your career progressing forward. So I had an agent here in Adelaide for several years, and they were fantastic. I loved them. But I made that decision that I needed to then step up to the next level, and that's where we all want to focus in our career. So then I reached out to Sydney and Melbourne, and been fortunate to be with a Sydney agent now. So that's about progressing your career, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that sort of leads into your branding as an actor, building a personal brand, which I think you focus on a lot in your coaching. So in today's industry, visibility is key. So how much focus do you think actors should put on their personal brand, including things like IMDb, social media, show reels, to create the opportunities for themselves?
Absolutely. I think social media and your kind of presence online is just such a great way to supplement what is happening in the formal capacity of your agent submitting you for briefs, right? If they're taking care of, official auditions and official opportunities coming through, what are you doing in the in-between times? And I think something like Instagram and Facebook, you don't need to be on every platform, but picking one or two that you can invest in is so wonderful for learning more about people, seeing what's coming out, for watching things, supporting things, and being in a way that someone can look you up online and learn more about you than what's on your Showcast or Casting Network's profile. People really
Mm.
like seeing what your personality is, or the fact that you have a family, or the fact that you go on holidays. You're a three-dimensional human. I think it's really important to, it's one of the first things I say to someone who does a career consult with me is like, get your Instagram or private. Like, you need to be public. If I'm a director, I need to be able to look you up and see what you're about. And a lot of people aren't taking advantage of technology and the internet and the power that it can have in connecting you with people.
And I guess there's the negative side of that too, is being aware of knowing that what you put out there on social media is easily found. So if you have very, very strong or opinionated opinions on Donald Trump or politics locally or whatever's happening in the day, I think you need to be mindful of that, don't you? It doesn't mean don't speak your mind, but you need to be mindful of that environment, especially if it's taken the wrong way, which is what happens a lot on social media.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I think a lot of people think that and feel like, oh, well, I just won't post anything because I don't want to upset anyone. It's like, no, think about what you value and what you want to be known for, or what causes you do want to support, and you'll find someone in the industry who agrees with you. So
Mm.
it's not to be scared or shy of cancel culture. It's about knowing that you won't get along with everyone. But if you are true to yourself, you'll find like-minded creatives to connect with.
I love that. And if you're hitting the pubs every weekend and getting smashed, as they say, that's the sort of stuff you need to be mindful of and keep off,
Yeah,
because it
like
might.
a fellow partier who also rolls that way. There's a lot of people out there.
You were talking before, and I'd like to see what you had your career counselling. What you call it, your career
Consultation.
counselling session. Constant, yeah. So you emphasize mindset and confidence in your coaching. So how does an actor's mindset impact their ability to create opportunities and sustain a career?
Oh, it's so huge. I think the mindset underpins everything, because ultimately it's how you're seeing the world and how you're thinking about your career and how you're perceiving your ability to succeed. Kim Jackson said it in her interview with you of, whatever you think, you will find evidence for. If you think
Mm.
there's not many opportunities, if you think you never get cast in self-tapes, if you think no one watches your American auditions, like, you'll find evidence for that. But if you think that you are a working actor, that you do have a knowledge of the industry, that you love acting, that you are energized by it and put effort into it, you will find more and more evidence that supports you in that. So I think, a lot of actors don't realize that a task you can do for your acting is radical self-compassion and radical self-care. Things like
Mm.
going for a walk, or sleeping in, or watching a crappy reality TV show, that is for your acting career, because ultimately we are the asset. Any business principle, they say protect the asset, protect the asset. And in this business, that's us. That's our health, our well-being, our headspace. I also
Exactly.
had a quote, which is, you can live in the fanciest house in the world, but you still have to live in your own head. And if
Mm.
that's not a pleasant place to be, if you are overrun with thoughts of self-doubt, or limiting beliefs or assumptions that you're clinging onto as true, it's going to make progress really difficult, because you're adding a stumbling block before the industry even does. There will
Mm.
be external stumbling blocks. There will be quiet
Of course.
periods. There will be auditions you're not right for, or casting directors you don't connect with. So you don't want to add to that list and make it difficult for yourself to even value who you are and what you are able to contribute.
Exactly. And in a career consultation with you, what are your initial steps with actors? What are you looking at and developing, and how do you approach an actor when they first appear in the Zoom call with you?
Well, before we meet on Zoom or in person, I send a preparation document. So I ask for things like your headshot, your resume, your show reel, 3 recent self-tapes, and then there's a few questions around goals and stumbling blocks and things like that. And so I just get a really great sense of where the actor is currently at. Are they looking to go to drama school? Have they finished their training and they're looking to get their first agent? Are they transitioning between agents? Have they booked a few professional roles and are looking to increase that? Are they looking to get their first professional role? So sort of see where they're at in their career, and then we sit down and go through the things that are working really well that they need to keep doing, and then the things that they're missing, the blind spots that are potentially there of how to increase success and joy in what they're doing, and to have a really clear plan at the end of it of their steps moving forward. So there's
Nice.
the 90 minutes that we spend together talking, and then there's also another email that I send afterwards of the resources or the specific tasks that I'm looking at them to include in their work as an actor.
Oh. And that sounds like you're focusing on both sides. So on the business side of acting as well as the creative side, they go hand in hand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a very
Mm.
holistic approach.
Yeah, and Brian Pataka mentioned that a lot. He says as much as you got to focus on the business side, you don't let go of that creative side. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're in. So you need to have an understanding of that, but to bring it always back to that creative side, don't you?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
And as we wind up, I just wanted to ask you, the industry is evolving with self-tapes and AI and streaming and lack of money in distribution companies, et cetera, that's changing the whole environment. What trends do you think actors should be preparing for to stay competitive in the business?
That's such a good question. I think there's always going to be things that threaten our livelihood. And I think
Of course.
pursuing acting in the last 5 years, I mean, we've had such a rough go of it with, the strikes and then COVID and then, the LA fires, that I feel like that had a ripple effect.
Mm.
Funding is always a thing under threat. AI is now the new kind of awful. So it's like avoiding any work with AI, and advocating for artists and knowing that your humanity is what makes you the storyteller. And it's understanding those very real industry, the news of what is happening, but not letting that deter you, and knowing that you'll find a way, and that ultimately what brought people the most comfort in lockdown was watching things. As Sean Baker said, go to the cinema. But I think people still ultimately want to gather and hear stories. And what you
Definitely.
do is meaningful and important. So you have to stay the course and not let any of the bad news deter you, and be flexible and be agile. Sometimes there will be a chemistry test on Zoom and you think, how the hell am I meant to create chemistry when I can't even look in someone's
Screen.
eyes? So there will be little things that you'll have to adjust to or change about your process. But ultimately, the world wants to consume film, television, and theatre that either reflects society back to us or provides an escape, and to take comfort in the fact that you are a part of that.
Definitely. And I think so many people are scared about AI taking over, and I think no longer are we going to see a movie recruit 1,000 extras for the crowd scenes. It's just a given that they're going to develop that in AI, and they've been doing that for years anyway. But I think down on the screen, and people are scared that we're going to have an AI actors and stuff. I think it's, you mentioned before, that human touch that it will never be generated, about seeing a person on screen, so to speak. And even the AI generated Tom Cruises that you see on screen, that it even though they're damn good, but you just know it's not him, and you can just feel something not quite right there. So that's what we have to hold out for, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's uncanny. And I think more and more we're going to go the other way of, like, look how many non-traditional actors we've seen in leading roles recently. Look how much diversity we're seeing. Look how much inclusivity and inclusive casting and authentic casting we're seeing.
Mm.
Audiences are ultimately hungry for something real and something palpable in front of them, and a computer can just never recreate that.
Most definitely, most definitely. Well, Emily, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful chat. Now, if anyone wants to reach out to you for coaching services or help with their self-tapes, what's the best places to find you? And I will put them in the show notes, of course.
Oh, thanks. Joy Studio Acting on Instagram is where I am.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know, as I said, I'll put them in the show notes for people to reach out to you. So, well, what one piece of advice, it's probably a summary of everything we've chatted about, what one piece of advice would you give a struggling actor to propel their career forward if they wanted to do something today, right now?
Watch an Australian production and stay for the credits and start taking note of who is writing, directing, producing, and casting the shows you're seeing.
Wonderful. And obviously with listeners around the world, it's the same in your local area. Understand the market that you're in. Watch the films. I love it. My wife has to hang around in the cinema because I want to watch the credits. Which is great sometimes because then you don't know which movies have got that that snippet at the end. I know Marvel do it all right. And you go, everyone left and I'm still here. So I love it. Emily, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much, David.
Cheers.